Welcome to an all-new episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Oluchi B.
Oluchi B, Looks and Wisdom, take 2 in 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Oluchi B. Please say the B, aka the elusive pundit. Honey, how are you feeling? How are you feeling, B?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good myself.
Good. Okay.
So today we are joined in studio by Bongeka. So we had Bongeka in season 2 last year. So Bongeka is an author. She is an author of a wonderful book called Thinking in Full Color. She's also a change maker and a coach, but we're not going to be talking about any of those things today. The reason why we have the Queen in studio today is we're going to be talking about dating over 30. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me as a guest, even though I don't know if I'm the most experienced person when it comes
You
to the
are the
dating
queen
world.
of thinking in full color. We're not
Okay.
looking for perfection. We're looking for your experience.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay.
So
Yeah.
before we get into it, I just wanted to get your opinion
Yeah.
on the first episode that we had around the topic where we actually spoke
Yeah.
about a relationship being a partnership. So it's two people who are coming together to form a partnership.
Yeah.
And because we decided that a relationship was that, there had to be then matrix that form this relationship. And the first thing we spoke about was non-negotiables. What are the parameters that you are not willing to go over when it came to the relationship? A lot of the people say religion plays a factor, money plays a factor, mental
Yeah.
issues play a factor. And then after that, we spoke about the foundation of a relationship, and I spoke
Yes.
about it from the topic of love languages, knowing how you love, what you bring to the table. I hate that. And also, but most importantly, what we were emphasizing on was knowing how the person you are with receives love.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the fact that you can love someone all you want, but if you're loving them wrong,
In the wrong
you're not
language.
loving them because they're
Yeah.
not receiving that love. And that was then emphasized by communication, the fact that you know what you want. It's then your accountability point to ensure that you are effectively communicating this to the next person. So you guys are very clear about what this person wants, and you are also clear about what you want, but also you are clear about what you are bringing to this relationship so that you guys know. And then the last point was around evaluation. How do you evaluate that your relationship is successful? We were talking about from the perspective that a relationship is not perfect. So you mustn't go there thinking, we're just going to be counting stock. We did this, we did that, we did that. We were actually going to be looking at the relationship realistically, evaluating whether or not we are happy, whether or not these matrix that we've put actually work for us. And to drive that point home around evaluation and the fact that relationships are not perfect and things are always going to happen, we said that it was very important that you guys have like a common anchor that's going to anchor the relationship. And a lot of the couples that we were speaking around were actually talking about the fact that having a family unit and having children was that anchor. So if you're going on the rails trying to be this human being in the world, changing
Yeah.
the world, and sometimes being neglectful to your partner, when push comes to shove and you guys have to compromise, that compromise is going to come from the basis of that anchor. What are we doing to ensure that that anchor still stands still in a relationship? As the full color thinker that you are, I just wanted to get your opinion on what you thought and what you feel about that.
Okay. So you said a lot.
I know.
So maybe let's start with the partnership
Yes,
one, and then
yes.
you'll remind me of some of the other things
problem.
because there's quite a lot. I think definitely I agree with that. Maybe I'll speak from the lived experience of being a child that grew up with a mom and a dad,
Yeah.
and my parents are still together, and not that marriage is perfect. I think when you grow up with a mom and dad, you see both aspects of a marriage, the joys of it and the challenges of it. But I think one of the things that I've always loved, and I've always said to my parents, that my parents, every decision that they made together, and that was a model even for us. Before they would buy a house, even as young children, they will say, hey guys, we're thinking of this, what are your guys' thoughts? And I think that was that left such a powerful imprint for me, even when I think about like the kind of man I want to be with, that you don't just go and do whatever that you want to do, but that we are communicating a vision, together.
I like that.
And I agree with you around the conditionality of love. I'm sorry if that's I don't even know if that's a word. I create my own words sometimes.
Yeah.
But love is conditional.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this to some of my friends, they frown at me. I don't believe in the idea of unconditional love. I know we love to sing, oh, unconditional
I got the right person for this episode.
I don't think there
Me
is
too,
such a
me
thing.
too.
I believe in the idea of unfailing love. I think love can be unfailing, in the sense that, and it depends on, what this person, you always evaluate. There are people that you like, I'm letting go of this is not working out. But there are people that are still in our lives, whether it's our friends, our parents, whatever, if you married your husband, your wife, that they still hurt you, but you still try at it, so, but there's still always conditions in the love journey. There's no love thingy. We are the very nature of the human condition is I need to get something from whatever that I'm going into, so. And then I think you spoke about matrix, the evaluation.
I mean, I think your conversation already covers that. The fact that your family sat together, and you actually used a word that I wish I'd use, a vision. A vision for the relationship, because I feel like that sustains when those hard times come, when those challenges come, when there has to be compromise in the relationship.
I think, and again, a lot of how we think about love and marriage stems from our childhood, right, experiences. There's pros and cons, obviously. I think also I grew up in a very Christian Pentecostal environment. That's why when you told me about like pitching this, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm the right person. I feel so inexperienced, because for the longest time, and also I grew up very Zulu, in a very conservative thing where you don't date. Like you're not allowed to. And then when you do start going into the world and you experiment, because you don't have the tools, you have not been trained, you make mistakes, and it takes a journey of really knowing yourself and knowing what you want, which I think is the foundation of great relationships, self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-love, but I really think one of the powerful metrics for me is communication. You've got to be confident enough to be able to articulate for yourself, what is my vision, and and see if you're in the same page with this other person that you're journeying with. Otherwise we're wasting each other's time.
Okay, that's true. Well, I'm glad that you spoke about the fact that love is a journey. First, your own journey, about your own understanding about who you are, where you are going, and what do you want. So today's episode, we're obviously talking dating in your 30s. As a person who is now sitting in your 30s, society would deem you as like a single woman. You do not have any children of your own. What would you say, looking at that evolution of yourself, led you to now being in your 30s as a single woman with no children?
I think, obviously being in my plus 30s, to be honest, for the longest time, because I think to the point I mentioned earlier, I come from an environment and a background that didn't frown singleness. In fact, it was encouraged. So I didn't see anything wrong with being single. I saw many women around me who were single and they were successful, you know, like as in materialistically. So I aspired a lot to be like that. And I saw married women who were frustrated. So I think I've always gravitated towards the single route. But of course, there does come a point where you do desire love, and then you begin to meet people and you get to know people, and things, again, back to the tools. I think when you don't know yourself, when you're still figuring yourself out, you're experimenting, and then you get burned, and then you learn the hard way, and then you have to reconfigure. And so now I'm in a better state in terms of, like, this is a choice, you know, like being single. It's not because, I mean, I have suitors. Hey,
Okay,
guys,
Queen, you give us this information, please.
But it's by choice, and by choice of my understanding of my self-awareness, my self-worth, and knowing that right now what I want. You know, I'm not about playing. I do want to get married, but also I want a different kind of marriage. So meaning I want a different kind of man. And the man I want, I often say, is a bit of a unicorn. When I think about,
that's why I said you must watch that movie, because it's very much on the delusional.
I mean, I know I'm queen delusional, and I wear that. And, you know, and listen, my other friend and I were talking about this. She's like, so Bongs, what if you clock? Because I said I have a timeline. Hey, if I clock, like, let's say 45 and nothing else, I'm actually okay to be single. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. Because I've done it, but as long as I have money in the bank,
and I have some coins,
and I can travel the world and live the life of my dreams, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you about that, because it takes a lot of honesty to look at yourself. And I wanted to highlight something that you said, something that I feel like gets taken for granted when we are talking relationships and dating when it comes to the millennials. I think we are called the millennials. And it's something called the Miss Independent syndrome. And I wanted to just get your thinking around that, because the generation before us didn't have opportunities to work. They used to be homemakers, so that was like the only role that they had. As a woman, you're supposed to be a homemaker, married with children, and take care of your husband. And then by the time our generation was coming about, there were options around being an independent woman, a woman who is able to do for themselves. And do you think in and around our generation, millennia, that aspect of society now accepting women into work, into all of these different facets that didn't exist before, actually did contribute to being single in your 30s and stuff like that?
I don't think so. I think when I look at, you know, again, I'm going to speak a lot about my background.
And by the way, I'm speaking in general, because stats do show that a lot of the millennial women, because of what was happening historically, rather than going the traditional route of being housewives, went and tried to find new ways of existing as independent women in society.
But okay, let me take a step back. But I think I think we are all products of our society, to your point, in some way. So to your point, yes, you know, we were given much more opportunities that our grandmothers, our mothers didn't have. Opportunities to study whatever you want, opportunities to come to Joburg. I mean, till today, my grandmom, like my sister lives in Cape Town. We from Durban, I live in Joburg. To her, she cannot fathom that. She's like, so you live by yourselves, because it's a life that they never would have imagined that you would, as a woman, have your own money, have your own car, have your own apartment. And it is we are the products of our societies, right? And yes, I agree that the opportunities we were given, the socialization of our society, has led to the Miss Independent syndrome. I absolutely agree with that. But I think for me also, I was encouraged to be more interdependent, meaning my grandmom was a domestic worker. She was in the apartheid era, but she saved up the little bit of money she had so that my mom could go and become a teacher. And my mom always says, my grandmom would say to her, even if you get married, I need you to have your own things. And that is what pushed my mom. So even when I was young, my mom would tell my sister and I, guys, be independent. Even if you get married, have your own things. And she wasn't, so for us, it was almost like you can coexist. Relationships, being in a marriage and love can coexist with your independence. But I think the danger, and it's something you and I were talking about, that sometimes we must be cautious, especially as South Africans and as Africans, not to adopt Western and particularly American narratives. This thing, I don't need a man. I need a man. I need a man. Trevor Noah, wherever you are, find me. Okay, I'm sorry. I cut that out.
No, girl, I'm just trying to mind my own throat because I'm like, what's going on?
No.
I was here singing to Pussycat Dolls because they really had a song. I don't need a man to make it happen. I get up for myself. And also Destiny's Child had a What You Think, I Don't Need a Man. They had a whole, it was like the anthem of
and
our
yet
lives.
all of them are married.
Exactly.
Be careful of women. Be careful of women. So I'm saying I think I believe in the power of interdependence.
Exactly.
The Miss Independent thing is also listen, if you want to, there's nothing wrong if that's the life you want to choose of being single. That's okay. But I think don't bash others who. We want to be successful. We have our books. We have our, we have many other things we're doing to make a difference in our generation because we're passionate women.
Exactly.
We love making a difference. But I think that can coexist with being in a relationship, a healthy relationship.
Heavy on the healthy.
Healthy. With a self-assured, healthy man as well.
No, we don't want no insecure guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've looked at yourself, your own evolution. We've looked at the society. But then there's other things and other factors that do contribute to dating, which is childhood trauma. And what is your understanding around how you grow up, the environment you're in, which informs our childhood traumas, actually affects how we relationship later on in life?
I think that's a big component. I think we spoke about it it's one earlier when we were talking about a conversation about other people, and I said that all of us have some sort of childhood trauma, whether you grew up in a healthy family, where your mom, dad
we would deem you as someone who grew up in a healthy
environment. I did.
I grew up in an unhealthy one.
But
Takashi
you see,
grew up in an unhealthy one.
Even in healthy families, when you grow up, let's say I have a lot of siblings.
Yeah.
There's even still things that, because remember, as our parents are raising us, they also raising themselves, or they're also figuring out life. Do you understand what I mean?
Our parents had us when they were like 15,
our parents
16.
had us my mom had us in her early 20s. My dad, I think it is
my mom had her first child at 16, guys.
Do you understand what I mean? They're figuring this out.
And she was here sitting on our necks about not being teenage.
And one of my friends actually, she gave this language so beautiful. We were talking about this. She was like, Bongs, we have to actually humanize our parents. And I love that so much. True. And I think the older we get, the more empathetic I am, the more human I am, because it's like when you're a child, you resent your parents for some of the things they do. Of course, they provide for you and think, listen, my parents are great, they've done it, but there's certain things where you're like, this, that, but because you're looking at it through the lens of being a child. But the older you get and you see your own mistakes, you're like, I would, if I had a child at that young, I would have messed up that child. So I think for me, all of us have some sort of childhood wound, whether it was intentional or unintentional. And the journey, and this is one thing, the journey is to, number one, awaken or recognize that, rather, what is this thing, and then the lifelong calling of healing that, because the truth is it's a lifelong journey.
Exactly, that's true.
To heal that. And it is a response when you go into a marriage or any relationship. It is your responsibility to know it, because anytime that somebody maybe says something and it bugs you, you must be curious. What about that And I can get, for me, it's always when I interrogate, it's always stems from my childhood. Sometimes it's not even a parental thing.
Yeah.
It maybe it's something that happened with, relatives or friends or the community you grow up in, where it's like, okay. Like, I think for the longest time, I grew up believing I'm not a beautiful I knew I was smart.
Yeah.
Because I was told that I knew.
I know this for a fact because you never miss talking about this topic.
Yeah, I knew
time.
I knew I was brilliant. I knew I was smart. But beautiful, like, because again, society, like when you would be walking, especially when you grew up in a township, you're walking and then they're always going to call you your other pretty cousin. They don't call you. And also I was a chubby, I was a chubby
I saw
kid.
your picture on LinkedIn.
Wow.
You put it there yourself.
Wow, guys.
But you put it there yourself, honey. I'm trying to get the people to get some evidence.
But you saw how chubby I am.
Yes.
So I was so you grab. So I didn't have the consciousness. So when when I started getting older and, meeting people and they're like, you're beautiful, I'm like, I'll cringe. I'm like, and I literally remember saying to this person, I'm like, you're lying. Stop lying to me.
Yeah.
Stop lying to me. And then I had to realize that it was the wound that I was dealing with. And that's been something that now, when somebody says it, and remember my coach saying, embrace that and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that we actually did touch on is blanketing issues in relationship, which obviously stem from trauma. All men.
Yes.
I will never be in a relationship because no one marries people who are over 35 and those type of things. What are some of the blanketing issues around relationships that grate your tits, that you feel like we should look at it and be like, we shouldn't be blanketing any issues?
I mean, I think, this is a pet peeve of mine. I think, we were talking about this, like, that I was listening to a conversation and this lady made an exaggerated statement around 90% of people, South African men are useless fathers. Yeah. And it triggered me because I noticed that when I came to Gauteng, to Joburg, the idea of absent fathers was a concept that I didn't have before, because I grew up in a community, in a town where most people, I don't have the statistics again because I don't like to use stats when I haven't used a proper validity and reliability instrument, but most, as in from the observation, from qualitative data observation, had a mom and a dad, right? And I grew up with a mom and a dad. Now, I don't diminish the circumstances that there are people who grow up without their fathers, of course. But I think we must be cautious of not, there's a friend of mine, he always said something so profound. And he always said that you should not make a peculiar experience the norm. Like your peculiar. I love that. It's like, don't make your peculiar experience the norm. Yeah. We acknowledge that this is your lived experience, because
niggas ain't shit. That's what we're talking about in terms of your peculiar experience. Where men are trash.
Yeah, it's that
you're making it true for your existence. Men are always going to be trash around you because that's what you say.
Yeah, and it's like maybe putting a tribe to say,
I'm over the Zulu guys though.
I know my Zulu men are. I know everybody's trashing the Zulu guys. Listen, Zulu men are.
I'm traumatized for the next lifetime. But we're trying to bring a point home. We don't.
Yes,
we don't have anything negative to say about any tribe. Any tribe. We love everybody over here.
And we must be without invalidating our lived experience, because our lived experiences still matter. But I still think, though, the caution around not saying #men are trash, because also a lot of the women that will write those things, they have sons. Would you like it if people said your son was trash? They have brothers, they have fathers. Do you understand what I mean? Sometimes just because you had that one experience with that particular person doesn't mean now that becomes the entire experience of everybody. I just think we need a bit more color and more nuance and more empathy.
That's why you're the author of the full color thinking spectrum.
Yeah.
You were supposed to bring us into this light, darling. Come on. Which then leads me to my second point around accountability.
Yeah.
There are two people in a relationship, so there has to be some level of accountability. Is there like an example where you were in a relationship and you were like, oh, F him for life, and then when you looked at it, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to have gotten to the point where you're like, fuck him for life, but more of like, you were like, I don't want to be associated with that, but then you look back and you looked at that accountability element of the fact that you were also a player in this relationship?
I think that, you know, for me, definitely, I maybe it's also the nature of the person. I'm very reflective.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have what I call my daily pilgrimage, where literally I spend time with God. I reflect on the previous day, and I'm like, okay, what could I have done better? Listen, I'm not perfect. I'm a human. I make mistakes, you know, but I think not only in the context of romance, because this is another thing. Who you are is who you are across the spectrum. True. So if you can't apologize to your parents, your siblings, your friends, you will not be able to apologize to a romantic, because I'm not different. Yes, you may play slightly different.
That's true.
Your execution may be slightly different.
That is true.
But this is who you are.
Yeah.
So if you are a person who takes accountability at home, at work, you're gonna take accountability with your friends, with your siblings. Yeah. So I that's me. Like, maybe there are some moments where I felt, okay, I could have done better. But I also think I was talking to you that there's still a person that I feel owes me an apology. Yeah. But I've had to also realize that people are in their different journeys, and that will probably never come. But I think, especially as we are in our 30s, you know, the people in our 40s, I have friends in their 40s, they laugh. They're like, oh my goodness, wait till y'all get to the 40s. Y'all do not know what is going on in life. You know, we thought we figured things out. I remember in our 20s, we thought we had things figured out. And then the 30s came.
True. Yeah.
You know, but I think accountability is a two-way streak. Yeah. So we just sharpen that skill set, because even at the dissolving of a relationship, I love maturity. I love the sitting down of, hey, this is not working because of A, B, and C.
So you've never ghosted anybody?
I don't believe in it. I think it's the worst form of thingy. Okay. I think it's immature.
So do you guys like sit down, be like, hey, it's a wrap?
For me, I initiate conversations. Sometimes, you know, the other party may be like, oh, this is most of the time it's like, oh my God, this is new, because they've never experienced a mature woman. Because again, I'm a very joyful person. I'm a woman who loves God. I don't want to be walking in the streets and I want to still greet you. Hey, alright. So you can't do that when you've had a fight and you've ghosted. I think ghosting, hey, people, my friends know, I think it's very immature. That's true. Have a conversation, close a thing off properly.
Take accountability.
Move on with your life.
Apologize and move on. Apology. So if you haven't apologized to anybody and you know you should apologize, even if you just send an anonymous text like, yeah, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings, I'm sure the person's gonna like know it's from that person.
No, I think I think it must have some level of depth. Yeah. For me, I think it must be like, hey, I said this, and this is probably how it made you feel, and I'm really sorry. Because, hey, I'm sorry. For me, again, maybe this is me. Yeah. It doesn't carry enough weighting. Yeah. It needs to have this, because it tells me you've really reflected. Yeah. And then you coming from a place of depth, of truth, of sincerity, as you say. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, before we close this off, I wanted to speak about something that is very important. I didn't get to speak about this on the essay episode that I had around true love being conditional and that T's and C's apply, was around the paperwork element that no one ever wants to do. I always feel like it's an elephant. Like a lot of the people, especially our generation and the generation after, they don't want to go to the court and get married. Like they just feel like it's a bigger commitment than having children. And I always feel like, hello, what do you mean? This person is permanent. They're not going anywhere. With the paperwork, you sign a document, you read the document, you know what you want to put in the document. If you want to have a prenup, you have a prenup. If you want to have a postnup, you have a postnup. If you want to have a gag order, you can like break it down. If we're married for like 2 days, this is what's going to happen. So are you afraid of getting the paperwork document as part and parcel of your romantic relationship, or you're open to having the paperwork document?
You know, there's something that we learned in coaching when I was being accredited to be a coach, because you also go through a baptism. No, it's not just about the technical skills of, okay, how do you ask questions, but you also go through your own journey because of where they unlock what it is to be human. And one of the things, and one of the modules we studied was around meanings. The how we attach meaning, the when you attach, like, it's like if I drink this and I'm like, oh my god, this is bad for me, that's the meaning of attached to it. Whereas if you drink, I don't know, whatever, and you're like, oh, this is good for me. So I have not attached, you know, the meaning that our generation has attached to marriage. You could see, oh, it's why must we, it's paper. For me, I see marriage as multifaceted. Firstly, I see it as a covenant, a godly covenant. That this was initiated. Maybe it's also because, you know, of my spiritual foundation. That I never. One of my prayers is, God. Even when I was young, I always used to say, God, give me the you know me. You know what the future holds. You know how, again, as a human, we are always in an evolution. I always say marriage is a lifelong conversation, you know, because
that's what you have to do with a friend. Like, for me, when it comes to relationship, I would never be able to deal with someone who's not my friend.
It's a lifelong, because the Bongeka that I am at 36 is not going to be the Bongeka that I am at 42. It's not going to be the Bongeka that I am at 55. It's a lifelong conversation. I'm going to change. My health is going to change. I mean, I had a health scare last year. Never in my wildest dreams.
Shout out for you surviving that, honey. Hello, I was worried about the queen.
You know, but again, and then you know what the consequences of that, my financial thing is. I never would have thought I would have gone through the challenges, but it happened. So the point is, life is always going to be unfolding in ways. So I believe that it is a spiritual covenant. Then I believe in the cultural elements of it. I'm very Zulu, so meaning that they are, you know, like,
gotta get the cousin.
Do you understand what I mean? I may not necessarily understand some of the things. For me, to be honest, I would like my husband and I to have a very small private thing where it's just us and our families and our close friends. But because I know my parents would want a particular route, and I always say my activism submits to my love for my parents. So there's certain things that I don't get, probably I don't want to do, but I would do for their sake. And then, of course, if you're going to be married, again, for me, I don't attach the meaning goods, oh, it's paper. It's like, okay, cool, we're getting married. We're living we already signed work contracts. Do you understand what I mean?
Exactly,
we signed cell phone contracts.
Being apprehensive about signing a marriage contract. What do you mean?
You're always signing contracts.
Every day of your life, you're signing something. T's and C's applied. You get a cell phone, it's T's and C's applied. You're signing something. You go
car.
buy something.
You're signing a contract.
I mean, so you would rather give 7 years of your life to BMW.
Do you understand? You're always signing some sort of contract.
Exactly.
And for me, so I sit in those 3 dimensions, and to be honest, it's really not a big deal for me. It's not a big deal for me. Like, T, is it a big deal for you?
No, it's not.
I don't get why people signing a document that you can unsign is a problem, especially knowing that you can put what you want. People always like, in community, out of no. There are other things. T's and C's apply. If you have a child and then you leave me in a year after the child, this is what you owe me. If we separate, we're going to keep the children 50-50. You have to stay 50 meters away from me so that the children can go into the same school. You don't talk about me to other people. If you're dating after we break up only for 6 months, the children, like those things. Like, I see it as like any other contract, a work contract,
we
a
always
tender
signing contracts. Absolutely.
And I never could understand why people would rather have a permanent fixture like a child and then be like, oh no, slow.
Yeah.
When
But-
it comes to like signing the court documents.
But you know what? And my friend and I have a friend of mine, we spoke about this because we've spoken about this similar topic. What shocks me is people are more comfortable after, let's say they're at a club, going home with somebody they don't know and being intimate with them than signing a marriage contract. That for me, again, I know people are going to be like, you're judging us. Yes, I am. I actually am.
We listen and we do judge.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you're not supposed to be, but it shocks me that you would rather take a risk with a stranger that you just met as opposed to actually introducing this person, go high and, making sure that you go through the necessary protocol. Mind you, you're right. There's now a variety of contract.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be community
you
or
can
property.
even change it during the process.
Do you
Like,
understand?
you know what? Your coins are going down basement. I need to change. Like, I was reading now, Melania Trump, before she got into the presidency with Trump the first time, she recontracted herself in that marriage with Trump because obviously there's more at stake now. And then again, when Trump was going into office, the Queen was busy with her lawyers making sure that whatever she wants to get out of that partnership, because a marriage, a relationship, or whatever that's long term is a partnership. She had to renegotiate, and then they signed again. I could never get it. For you, it's doing that, but for me, like the children. So you saying we must have kids. How many people do you know are not paying child support?
Exactly.
How many people do you not know are not showing up? At least if you protected yourself with that, we can find this person and we can actually take money, not from his bank account, from his word.
And also, it's bigger than just the relationship with the marriage. I was listening to this lady who I love. She's a financial expert, so a podcast. And she was like, people also just think about the marriage, but do you know that a person can also die? Like, she was also warning women. She said 5 things that you shouldn't do in 2025 as a woman. Number 1, this whole hashtag, I don't know anything about finances at home, it takes care of everything. And she was warning women to say how many of her clients where the husband has died, the perceived wealth, only to find out this guy was borrowing money from everybody. But if only you had known how much a bond was, how much actually the expenses of this home was, like where do the money in this home go? How much, where does my husband actually, because you married to a criminal and yet you are thinking, it ain't cute.
Exactly. I've
in
seen
2025.
people who were staying in Sandton at the, what do you call that tower hotel?
Michelangelo.
At the Michelangelo. And as soon as that guy sort of like dies or disappears, you back to the shack with all these children because you were not checking for the papers. You were not even checking what's going on in the bank account. So it's very important, the money aspect. The money aspect is very important. Anybody who doesn't want to talk money in relationships,
it should be one of the first conversations. And I know
you better drop your bank statement real quick.
And I know for me it's not even about we want I want your money. But let's have a conversation around, okay, what is our financial health status? No. And one of my friends,
I'm laughing at the fact that I'm always on Facebook, those confessions, and it's always women like that. You know those Facebook confessions?
Yes.
Keep me anonymous.
Because it's one of those. But also, let's have a conversation. For me, I'd say that's one of the early, before you get married, there are certain fundamental conversations you must have. Finances is one of them.
Number 1 at the top.
Do you understand what is our financial, where do you stand? And be honest, if you're not in a good space, let's talk about it. What's your plan on getting out of, for all of us? You, do you understand what I mean? And mind you, I know my friends think I'm very cruel for saying this. I don't think, like, if you are not okay, including me, including anybody financially, you should be going into a relationship because
guys, back to the original conversation, the contracting. So that's important. And around the contracting, you are privy to see your man's statements. You can get into his bank accounts. You can know this information just because you guys have signed the marriage certificate. And that helps
when you're married, though, because when you still when somebody is not married to you, they're still single. You know that.
But we're talking about now you are taking it as like a formal commitment.
Because otherwise people are like, Aibo. Like, when they married you, for me as a Zulu girl, lobolad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is important. Was there anything else that you wanted to give us in terms of what we're talking about with the 5 things for 2025 that women have to be serious about? The finances.
Oh, I love that. It's just that I forgot her name at the top of my thing, but they must Google man on YouTube. But yeah, she spoke about like the finances. The other thing though, sorry to think it, that she did say that I just remembered was on the marriage contracts. This is very controversial, but I thought I really like what she said, and she was saying there is nobody. She was like, in 2025 that should be marrying in community of property.
Please,
And
why?
she was
'Cause
like,
I was shocked that people who are married in community of property, like you can even take my provident fund. I was
yeah,
shocked
no,
by
half
that.
of it, yeah. So
What do you
so
mean, girl?
her
I was
thing
standing
was that
alone in the
obviously
corporate
she's
seats.
gotten a lot of attack from people because remember, from the faith communities and the culture communities, that
know
was a
those
norm,
ones.
right? But she was like, what people don't understand is we're living in a different society. Maybe back in the day we were not as financially overstretched as our parents. Right now things are really tough financially. Like you look at people like us who are well qualified but still are out of jobs.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? So and that was never a thing before. So her thing was that it's not a wise decision to be marrying in community of property. There's many other options of marriage contracts that you should consider, and just do the necessary
That was never
research.
negative
But
in the first place. I don't know why
you-
people were coming for her. 'Cause
you know,
that's true.
but it's people who are not, I think, thinkers. Because you know what I loved, and I talk about it, Nami, I poked at it in my book a bit, that we over-focus when women are getting married, and it frustrates me. They over-focus on the aesthetics, the dresses, the florals. Don't get me wrong, those are important, but they don't think about, they focus on the wedding, not the marriage. And the marriage is the lifelong commitment, men and women, whoever's getting married. And it's now about the aesthetics, and nobody sits down and say, okay, what are we doing here? How are we going to finance? How are we going to parent? How are we going to deal with your family dramas? How are we going to deal with my family drama? Yeah. So I just thought that was a powerful insight. It's very educational. People must just go to YouTube and just say 5 things not to do in 2025. I think
I'll
video will
ask you
come
for
up.
the link and then I'll link it on
Okay,
this episode.
perfect. Yeah.
Okay, B, so that concludes our main talking points for today. Obviously, the topic was around dating in your 30s. Is there anything that you want to tell us about dating in your 30s that we missed today's episode? Like, don't do this, do that, be cognizant of that, do not be cognizant of that, like anything, like any advice?
I don't want to call it advice, but for me, I think the older I get, it's the thing. I'll reiterate the point. Great relationships stem from the foundation of self-love,
Yes.
self-awareness, and having, like, obviously a list. I have a list of the kind of man that I want.
Yep.
I know people, don't do lists. I think that's very
Please,
important.
it's very important.
And then also, I believe in the power of prayer. I pray over that. Guti, you know what? So that when the person appears, because it's also so easy when you meet people and you look at your list and then you're like, I get all this. I'm sorry. This is not going to work, because you know what you want, right? And also
no negotiables, guys. They call non-negotiables.
And also, as you want that of the other person, think about how you are developing yourself to be a better human, because we always want the best, but are we the best?
True.
So be the best in terms of inner health, like in terms of what am I consuming inside? Like, what am I consuming? Like, are my thoughts healthy? Like, as women, are we feminine? Are we? Because I think femininity is one of the
and the most underrated.
It's so sexy. My
and
goodness,
the most
can we
underrated.
return to our femininity?
Literally.
Am I feminine? Am I nurturing? I think femininity and being independent can coexist.
True.
So yeah, I think that would be my closing thought for today.
Okay. Thank you so much, B, for being
Thank you.
here today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Otherwise, then I think that's it. If there's nothing else, that's it. Thank you guys for joining today's episode. Thank you to Bongeka for being here talking dating in your 30s. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Do comment, do tell your friends, and do subscribe. I will see you guys in March. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And cut.